Manny was psyched. Family vacation to Disney World. He could practically smell the Mickey Mouse pretzels. At the airport, everything was buzzing. People rushing, bags rolling, announcements blaring. Manny, glued to his handheld video game, trailed behind his family like a lost puppy. Suddenly, his mom stopped short.
Manny, hurry up, we're boarding.
Manny panicked. He shoved his game in his backpack and sprinted towards the gate, not noticing his family veering left. He saw an open airplane door and bolted inside. He plopped into a seat, relieved to finally catch his breath. Manny glanced around. Something was wrong. Where was his family? And why were all these people speaking in weird accents? He was about to ask the lady next to him when the plane started taxiing down the runway. Manny gulped. This was not good. Manny watched nervously as the ground shrunk below. He was trapped on the wrong plane, and he had a sinking feeling he knew exactly where it was taking him. The plane touched down with a bone-jarring thud. Manny peered out the window. Skyscrapers stretched as far as he could see. Yep, just as he thought. New York City. Manny was officially a long, long way from Disney World. He shuffled off the plane, feeling a mix of terror and excitement. The airport was even crazier than the one he left. People everywhere, all speaking in that same funny accent. Manny felt a tap on his shoulder and spun around. A lady with a name tag smiled down at him.
Are you Master Manny Heffley?
Manny nodded cautiously.
Right this way, sweetie. Your car is waiting.
Car? What car? Manny didn't remember his parents mentioning anything about a car. Manny trailed behind the lady, his stomach doing flips. This whole day had taken a very weird turn. He just hoped this car would somehow lead him back to his family. And maybe, just maybe, to a Mickey Mouse pretzel or two. The car turned out to be a bright yellow taxi. Manny had only ever seen those in movies. The lady opened the door, and Manny hesitantly climbed inside. The driver, a gruff-looking man with a bushy mustache, glanced at him in the rearview mirror.
Where to, kid?
Manny froze. He had absolutely no idea. He thought about telling the driver his whole sob story, but something told him that wouldn't end well. He needed a plan, and fast. Manny remembered seeing a giant billboard for Times Square in the airport. It had flashing lights and everything. That seemed like a good place to start. Manny, Times Square. The taxi lurched into traffic, honking its horn at a passing bus. Manny gripped his backpack, his heart pounding. He was all alone in the middle of New York City. This was either going to be the coolest adventure ever or a total disaster. Times Square was even crazier than Manny imagined. Giant billboards flashed, music blared from every direction, and people swarmed the sidewalks like ants. Manny cautiously stepped out of the taxi, his senses on high alert. He wandered down the crowded streets, mesmerized by the chaos. His stomach rumbled, reminding him he hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. And all this sightseeing was making him hungry. Really hungry. Just then, Manny spotted it. A pizza place with giant gooey slices displayed in the window. He'd never seen so much pepperoni in his life. Manny's mouth started to water. He had a feeling this was going to be the best pizza ever. Manny pushed open the door and took a deep breath. The smell of melted cheese and fresh dough filled the air. He was in pizza heaven. Now, if only he could figure out how to pay for it without his parents finding out he'd blown his entire souvenir budget. Section 5. Times Square Spectacle. Manny managed to sweet-talk the pizza guy into accepting a slightly crumpled $5 bill. He devoured his slice in record time, licking his fingers clean. With his stomach full of greasy goodness, he felt ready to tackle the rest of New York City. He spent the next hour wandering through Times Square, dodging selfie sticks and street performers. He saw a giant red staircase that seemed to lead nowhere, and a store that sold nothing but M and Ms. This place was wild. Manny even stumbled upon a group of breakdancers doing headspins in the middle of the sidewalk. He watched in awe, wishing he could bust a move like that. He tried spinning on his head once, but it ended with him face-planting into a pile of dirty laundry. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the city, Manny realized he had no idea where he was going to sleep that night. He couldn't stay lost forever. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. Section 6, Central Park Surprise. Manny decided to head towards Central Park. He'd seen it in movies, and it looked pretty big. Maybe he could find a comfy bench to crash on for the night. He just hoped it wasn't crawling with alligators or something. He followed the flow of people until he reached the park's entrance. As he walked beneath the towering trees, the noise of the city seemed to fade away. Manny took a deep breath, enjoying the peace and quiet. He could get used to this. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. Familiar?
What's up, gamers?
Manny's head snapped up. Standing a few feet away wearing a signature white mask was none other than Dream, the famous YouTuber. Manny couldn't believe his eyes. Manny had watched every single one of Dream's Minecraft videos. He was a legend. This whole day had just gone from disastrous to totally epic. He had to say something, anything. But what do you say to your biggest idol when you accidentally bump into him in Central Park? Section 7, Museum Mayhem. Manny, mustering all his courage, approached Dream. He managed to stammer out a starstruck hi.
Hey there, what's your name?
Dream, to Manny's surprise, was super cool about it. They chatted for a bit about Minecraft, New York City, and the perils of accidentally boarding the wrong plane. Dream, it turned out, was also a bit lost. He was on his way to the Museum of Natural History for a special after-hours event, but he couldn't find the entrance. Manny, eager to prolong his encounter with his idol, offered to help him look. They wandered through the park, searching for the museum. They even stopped to admire a group of street performers juggling bowling pins and chainsaws. Manny was impressed. These New Yorkers sure knew how to put on a show. As the sky grew darker, they finally stumbled upon the museum's grand entrance.
Thanks for your help, Manny. Want to come to the event with me?
Manny couldn't believe his luck. He was going to a VIP museum event with Dream. This was officially the best day of his life. The museum event was amazing. Dream introduced Manny to a bunch of other YouTubers, and they all geeked out over video games and Minecraft strategies. Manny even got to hold Dream's diamond sword prop. It was heavier than he expected. They explored the museum's exhibits, marveling at dinosaur skeletons, ancient artifacts, and a giant squid suspended from the ceiling. Manny learned more about history and science in one night than he had in his entire life.
Listen, I heard about your little airport mishap. Don't worry, I got you covered. I know some people who can help you get back home.
Manny's jaw dropped. Dream was a lifesaver. Manny couldn't thank Dream enough. He'd not only met his idol, but also had an incredible adventure and a heartwarming story to tell his friends back home. This whole New York City thing was turning out to be a blessing in disguise. True to his word, Dream arranged for a car to take Manny back to the airport. As he rode through the city streets, watching the lights whiz by, Manny couldn't help but smile. He'd conquered New York City. At the airport, Dream's people whisked him through security and onto a direct flight back home. They even gave him a first-class seat and a giant bag of gummy bears. Manny had never felt so pampered in his life. As the plane took off, Manny glanced back at the twinkling cityscape one last time. He'd come to New York City a scared, lost kid. Now, he was leaving with a pocket full of memories, a new appreciation for pizza, and a story that would make him a legend at school. Manny settled back in his seat, popped a gummy bear into his mouth, and let out a contented sigh. He couldn't wait to tell his parents all about his epic adventure, although he might leave out the part about almost spending the night on a park bench. The flight back home seemed to fly by. Manny slept most of the way, dreaming of pizza slices, skyscraper adventures, and Minecraft marathons with Dream. When he finally landed, he felt like a changed kid. He spotted his parents waiting for him at the gate, their faces a mixture of relief and annoyance. He ran towards them, a sheepish grin spreading across his face. He was in so much trouble. Manny's parents peppered him with questions about where he'd been and what he'd been thinking. Manny, however, was too busy regaling them with tales of his New York City escapades. He told them about the pizza, the museum, and of course, his epic encounter with Dream.
Where have you been? What were you thinking?
Manny's parents didn't believe a word of it at first, but as he recounted his adventures with such detail and enthusiasm, they couldn't help but be swept up in his story. Maybe their son wasn't so clueless after all. Life returned to normal back home. Manny went back to school, endured his brother's annoying antics, and spent his weekends playing video games. But something had changed. He carried the memory of his New York adventure with him like a secret treasure. He told his friends the story so many times they could probably recite it backward. He even showed them the selfie Dream had taken with him in front of the museum, proof that his epic adventure wasn't just a figment of his imagination. Manny Manny knew he'd never forget his time in New York City. It was a reminder that sometimes getting lost could lead to the most unexpected and amazing experiences. And who knows, maybe one day he'd return to the Big Apple. After all, he had a score to settle with those breakdancers in Times Square.